Hello and welcome back to another GiantSlayerTV video. Today we'll be doing part 1 of our Set 6 champion review. This will feature half of the new champions ranging from the letters A to L. As Set 6 is still on the PBE, we will refrain from using too many specific numbers as those are likely to change. Instead, we'll talk about their costs, traits, and abilities in a brief critique of their overall design. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. But before we begin, please don't forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting content to come. Be sure to also follow our GiantSlayerTV social media pages. Alright, let's get back to the video. Starting off, we have the very first champion that starts with the letter A, Akali. Akali is a 5-cost champion with the traits Assassin and Syndicate. As is typical of an assassin, the goal with Akali is to wreck the enemy backline with an ability that dashes in a line through the most enemies, dealing damage and marking them. Once marked, that unit can then be executed by Akali when they fall below a certain amount of health. Basically, Akali is meant to be the late game insurance for assassin compositions, but will struggle against hard to kill comps due to half of her ability requiring the units to be low on health. Not the flashiest of 5 costs, but definitely has potential, though she may end up being a balanced nightmare as being either too strong or too weak. Next up is Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is back as a 2-cost champion with, you guessed it, his pull ability. However, the new aspect of Blitzcrank is that he has 3 synergies: Scrap, Protector, and Bodyguard. This makes him an ideal frontliner for quite a few compositions. That said, for anyone familiar with Blitzcrank in previous sets, not much has changed. Braum returns as a frontline, but this time he's a 4-cost champion with the traits Syndicate and Bodyguard. His ability comes with CC as he creates a fissure that will stun any champion struck by it within 2 hexes of Braum. Think of Braum as a standard frontliner with CC, not particularly interesting in design, but a necessity for the game to have plenty of tank options. Moving into the letter C, we have Caitlyn. Anyone that remembers Set 3 will be familiar with Caitlyn as she is once again a 1-cost with the same ability. She also has the Sniper trait as she did previously, with the secondary trait being Enforcer. Not much to write home about here for Caitlyn. She'll be useful early game to snipe units before getting outscaled. Camille swoops in as a 1-cost Clockwork champion with Challenger as her other synergy. As for her ability, she gains a shield that blocks damage, then sweeps her leg out in a cone. If the shield persists, Camille will heal during it. Relatively lackluster in design, but functional enough to be useful as an early game tank. What's that stomping you here? Oh, it's Chogath. But this time he's a 3-cost champion with the traits Mutant, Bruiser, and Colossus. Colossus is why Chogath starts off so large in size, which can be increased when he gains feast stacks with his ability that also increases his health. Keep in mind the quirk of Colossus units is that they require 2 spots on the board. Definitely a fun design with the stacking aspect of Colossus, plus who doesn't love a cuddly looking Chogath continuously growing in size throughout the game. Speaking of cuddly, don't get too close to Darius, a 1-cost champion with the ability that heals him based on the amount of units he hits with his axe. Expect to see Darius holding down the front line with his healing alongside the defensive synergies Bodyguard and Syndicate. Darius is also a potential reroll candidate depending on how unkillable he becomes with his healing ability. From a simple kit to an overloaded kit, we have Dr. Mundo. Mundo does a lot, though he is a 4-cost and has Bruiser, Mutant, and Chemtech as his traits, so doing a lot is expected. But his ability heals him, then continuously heals while also dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. Once that ends, there's a burst of damage that does a percentage of his current health as magic damage to nearby enemies. And that's the simplified version. The SparkNotes version of Mundo is Mundo does as Mundo pleases by being an unkillable nuisance in the front line. Out of the D's and into the E's with Echo. Echo is a 3-cost assassin scrap champion that will slow the attack speed of enemies hit by his AoE ability, while also buffing the attack speed of any allies hit. Think of Echo as being similar to Pyke in that he's there to be used for utility and not so much as a carry for assassins and other comps. Last time we saw Ezreal, he was a 5-cost, now he's returning as a 1-cost champion with the traits Scrap and Innovator. Ezreal's meant to be a pseudo damage dealer as he fires a bolt that deals a percentage of his attack damage and an additional bonus amount of physical damage. It also provides a stacking attack speed buff that eventually caps. More than likely, Ezreal will be an early item holder, but sold off later when transitioning into a stronger board. Fiora is returning, but not as a 1-cost champion. This time, she's a 4-cost carry. Her synergies are Challenger and Enforcer, so expect to see players generally utilize her as a damage-dealing carry, especially since her ability makes her untargetable, deals a percentage of her attack damage each strike with bonus true damage, and heals her. Yep, that sounds like a carry. Another chonky boy is here with the 5-cost Colossus, Galio. Galio is also a socialite and bodyguard, so that of course makes him a late-game frontliner. There's a lot to his ability, but basically he flies up into the sky and crashes down in a large AoE. This does damage and knocks enemies up with the amount they're knocked up in the air for being based on their health. On top of all of that, Galio also passively deals bonus damage in an AoE whenever he crits. We will definitely see Galio used quite often in the late game with that ability. Gangplank returns as a 3-cost to shoot the competition with his ability that deals attack damage and earns a shiny piece of gold if they die with his gunshot. In addition to earning extra gold, Gangplank is also a mercenary in Twin Shot. Mercenary is the fun new trait to gamble up some extra loot, so get familiar with Gangplank if you're willing to roll the dice. From 5 cost to 1 cost, our next champion is Garen, but he's still a frontliner with the traits Academy and Bodyguard. As for his ability, he ignores crowd control during it and does an empowered strike, dealing damage and bonus damage based on missing health. Maybe this is the return of Garen Carry. We'll have to wait and see. Graves is looking dapper as a 1-cost Academy champion with the secondary trait being Twin Shot. We've seen this song and dance before though, as his ability is a small AoE disarm. Simple and familiar. The only H champion is Heimerdinger. No longer a 5-cost, Heimerdinger is now a 3-cost Yordle, Innovator, and Scholar. And instead of summoning a turret, he now shoots out missiles that deal magic damage to the first target hit with an empowered cast on the third one. Certainly a step down from the potentially board-wiping ability of set 5, but still a decent source of damage for multiple compositions. Illaoi slams into the shores of set 6 as a 1-cost champion with the traits Mercenary and Bruiser. With her ability that does extra damage to a champion while healing herself, we expect to see Illaoi as a standard early game frontliner. It seems that J is a popular letter as we have multiple to cover beginning with Janna. Janna is a 4-cost scrap champion plus 2 additional traits, Enchanter and Scholar. Her ability is an AoE heal that pushes enemies away, stunning them briefly. There's not much else to Janna, but having a heal and CC while also being an Enchanter makes her a potentially common champion for a lot of different comps. Next up is the 5-cost champion, Jace. Jace has a lot going on beginning with his 3 synergies, which are Enforcer, Innovator, and Transformer. There's a ton of text that goes with Jace, but the quick and easy scoop is that if he's in the front row, he's melee and does a hammer smash that shields him. In the backline, he shoots pew-pew bolts and summons a gate in the row that he's in that buffs allies. We heavily recommend reading his kit carefully because it's quite a lot to take in. By far the most overloaded kit in the set, especially as a potential late-game carry. A much easier champion to understand is Jhin, a 4-cost sniper clockwork. Jhin has a fixed amount of shots per second and gains an empowered attack that pierces through enemies, dealing reduced damage to each target hit. The 4-shot is guaranteed to crit and deals increased damage based on the missing health of the target. Basically, Jhin is a ranged carry, nice and simple. Surprisingly, Jinx, a 5-cost, is not a backline carry. While she is ranged, her ability shoots her into the air and lands onto a group of enemies, dealing damage and putting a burn on every unit in the area but her. Then she begins attacking with her rocket launcher that has a small splash radius. Definitely one of the more unique champions, especially with one of her 3 synergies being Sister, giving her bonuses when played alongside Vi. Her other 2 traits are Twin Shot and Scrap. On to Kai'Sa, another 5-cost carry champion. Kai'Sa is a mutant challenger with her ability that fires multiple missiles after she dashes away from enemies. Those missiles are spread amongst the remaining enemy champions and deal magic damage. The interesting part of Kai'Sa is for each time she's attacked, she fires an additional missile, so there's a timer on fights against a stacked Kai'Sa carry. Thankfully, Kassadin is not a Void Assassin, but instead is a mutant protector that increases the mana cost of an enemy champion hit by his ability. Kassadin also gains a shield that takes reduced damage after using his ability, so expect to see Kassadin as an early game frontliner. Katarina is once again an assassin, but this time her secondary trait is Academy and is a 2-cost instead of 3. Her ability acts similar to previous sets where she jumps onto an enemy and deals magic damage to any adjacent enemies. For each enemy killed with her ability, Katarina regains some mana. Since Katarina is a 2-cost with a sort of reset-like ultimate, we expect to see her used in reroll comps or most likely just as a trait bot. The final K champion is the extremely adorable Kogmaw. Kogmaw is a 2-cost range carry with the traits Mutant, Sniper, and Twin Shot. That's right, Kogmaw has 2 synergies based around auto-attacking. Furthering this theme is his ability that grants him attack speed, infinite range, while also dealing a percentage of the enemy's maximum health as bonus damage. We definitely expect to see Kogmaw used as a carry, as well as a potential reroll champion. And finally for this video, we're into the letter L. To start off, let's talk about Leona. Leona, as per usual, is a frontline champion, but comes into set 6 as a 3-cost unit with the traits Bodyguard and Academy. She has a somewhat similar ability to the previous set, just stronger since now she's a 3-cost. When cast, Leona grants herself a shield for a few seconds. In addition to that, Leona and all allies within a few hexes gain armor and magic resist. So you can see how it's similar yet more powerful. More than likely, Leona will be a popular mid-game frontliner, though how well she scales is yet to be answered. Lissandra is up next as a 3-cost Chemtech Scholar. When Lissandra casts her ability, she stuns the enemy while dealing magic damage to them and any enemies within a relatively large AoE. This also applies an attack damage debuff to champions hit. The second aspect of her ability is when Lissandra is below 50% health, she instead uses it on herself, becoming untargetable and invulnerable while still dealing AoE damage. It's hard to pinpoint the role Lissandra will play since she's a mixture of damage, utility, and frontline, but having CC and a damage debuff makes her a staple champion in a lot of different compositions. Another returning champion to the set is Lulu. Lulu is a 2-cost Yordle and Enchanter and has the Wild Growth ability she's had in previous sets. This ability enlarges the lowest health ally, granting them bonus health and knocking up nearby enemies. If they're already enlarged, she heals them instead. We've seen this iteration of Lulu before, so expect her to fill a similar role she has in the past. And the final champion for today is Lux. Lux is now a proper carry as a 4-cost Arcanist and Academy champion. For anyone familiar with Set 2, Lux is once again bringing out the big guns as her ability shoots a laser beam towards the furthest enemy that does magic damage. If that unit, or any unit hit by her beam, is killed, Lux then gains 30 mana. Very similar to how Lux functioned before, though not quite as powerful. The same theme is there with her laser being able to effectively chain itself, especially with a blue buff. Expect to see Lux be a standard mid to late game AP carry for Set 6. And that's it for today, folks. Keep an eye out for the second part of our Set 6 champion review, which will cover the remaining champions of the new set. Leave a comment down below letting us know what champion you're the most excited for. Thank you for watching, and if you're enjoying our content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for future Giant Slayer TFT videos.